Well, so I was thinking earlier, the last film that you shot in your native Italy was Fire at Sea, right? And I was wondering, because I think that film was like 2018, and 7 years have passed. Um, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your decision to shoot in Italy again, and how you landed on Naples. The way in which you film Naples is like extremely singular, I think, and you show us a very different Naples than I think we see in most films, perhaps since Voyage to Italy. So maybe you could
No
tell.
pizza?
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a quote on pizza. The
Yeah,
girlfriend,
yeah,
as she
yeah.
called you have pizza. Well, but most of my work is always somehow accidental the way it happens. Like also for Farazzi, it was like someone, Carla Cattani, she said to me, "Well, we should do a film in Lampedusa," and then you don't know when Lampedusa. I knew where Naples was, but Lampedusa would then become a challenge, and you start discovering this place, and that's how that film. And also, Sacro Gra was another film that was born accidentally. My first film was born accidentally, Boatman. So I like kind of something happens to you. It's like a moment that passed by you. Calvino used to say the truth, or that moment that hits you. That for me is always with all the people I meet. It has to be that moment. And also when I start a project, it's that moment that hits you. Calvino used to say, "This truth is something that passed by you and force you to turn, and the moment you turn, is gone. No, but that moment stays on you." And that's where you build then your film, your encounters, because this film is based on encounters. I didn't write anything before. It's all. I spent 3 years. One man crew. I work alone. I had an assistant here, but I do camera, sound. So my biggest investment is always to put myself in a situation where I spend time there, and I try to understand. And then first you meet at a place, and then you meet the people that represent that place, and then you start working with the people, start being together, and the film start growing. And that's what I love about documentary. That is a process that you never know. You know when you start, you don't know when it ends. And I think the time of my film is the time of the encounters and to build up the trust that you need in order to go through this. This film, it happens. My friend Pietro Marcello, he had his film here, Duse. We are very close friends. He's from Naples, and he told me, we always wanted to do a film in that area of Naples, the one of the volcano, the one of Pompei, Ercolano. It's a Naples that is not being shown for its own identity. This is sense of suspension of time, the past, the present, the future, that is all there, and you have to dig it in constantly. I say always, for me, Naples is like a huge off screen, so it's like something that is outside of what you see. It's like the reality is there, but it's hiding always something, and that was the big challenge of the film, to try
Yeah.
to dig and to discover this element of stratification of time, of time that is suspended, of the present, the past, and the future. This for me was always the idea that I had to follow in this film. Also shooting in black and white, maybe it was that. And so Pietro, he said, "You should go there." And then for me, it was like inviting me, for someone from Naples, is opening the door and say, "I think you should make a film there." And that was a challenge, and I grabbed that, and I spent there more than 3 years, almost 4 years of my life. Basically, I lived in Naples, and I spent all the time till the film arrived.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, no, it's interesting because of Pietro's own work with archival footage. I think you would probably appreciate the place of archaeology in this film, and the role of archaeologists. I think there are a lot of cliches, perhaps in when we talk about filmmaking in terms of like editing and like editing's parallels with sculpture, right? You have all this material and you pare it down to just whatever. But I was wondering.
Sculpture in time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, shout out Andrei Tarkovsky. Yeah, but I was wondering if in the course of dealing with all this, like the footage with the the Japanese archaeologists in particular, if when you were editing the film, were you sort of like did that like contribute in any way to thinking about film form differently? Like, I was wondering if maybe sort of these kind of like archaeological considerations kind of like entered into things versus this like idea of a filmmaker just like you sit down with a big block of clay and you pare it down into your film. You know what I mean?
Is it a question or is it?
It's an attempt at a
Is
question.
it
Yeah. No, I was just wondering if you could talk to us about the editing of the film and this you're filming for 3 years, right?
For the first time in this film, I had the need because I start filming. Usually, in all my work, I spend a lot of time there collecting story, encounters, situation. When I did Notturno, I was around in Middle East, in Syria, in Iraq, in Kurdistan, all the area of ISIS where I filmed the Notturno. I spent 6 months without the camera, and it was very important for me at that time to just immerse myself in reality, collecting story, places, situation, and then start filming. Here, I basically start filming immediately, and also without knowing really where the film was taking me. Besides having few pages of a script that we needed at the beginning to raise the founding for the film, it was all the people and the character you have here. There was no idea of any one of those or the situation where I was filming, what and how. So it was a process of really immersing myself and immediately start filming. First with an area that is the shot that we have of Naples, of that side of Naples, and then to find stories in that area. But then I also felt immediately the need to keep editing. So basically, this film had like 3 years of editing parallel of the shooting, not constantly, but every 2 3 months I had the need to spend some time with my editor Fabrizio, that he was always there basically. So this was an incredible privilege, but also difficult because when you start editing so early, you get too attached to the footage. And but then was very useful because for me every story in this film could be a documentary on its own, could be 1 hour and a half film. So for me the idea of subtraction, of taking out information, of creating the sense of every story was important to do that from the beginning, to try to really take out it out in every story, try to find the essence of it. It's like basically when you write a musical composition, that the notes has to belong to the next notes, and in between there is this space of silence. So in the editing, I was always to try to find the connection between one story and another story, one character and another character, when to stop a story and go to another story, because if you go a bit farther, you cannot go back anymore. So to find this balance was very, very precarious and very, very fragile always. And by editing constantly, it helped a lot to find that space in between, that space of silence, that space of passage of time, that zone of passage, like a passage zone. And its passage zone, it had to contain constantly what it was, what it is, and what could be. For me, this was 3 elements of the narration which they were always present.
Yeah.
Even when where you frame, where you put the camera, the distance, the things, it's always. Before I was talking about the space between notes, which is the silence, and for me it's also important when I do a frame. In fact, in this film, it's mostly very still. The camera, there's a composition, is there, and then waited something to happen within that composition. But also, what is important for me is like in Ghirri, which is my favorite photographer. It's more important what is out of the frame than what is in the frame. And what is out of the frame has to be somehow contained into the frame. It seems absurd, but it's an oxymoron. But it is, for me, every frame has to contain what you don't see. and it's a big challenge every time, especially when you work with reality, when you work with things that you cannot plan, that you're constantly improvising.
Yeah, I mean, I think we think of your films as being such so rich visually, and but this film is also like orally or sonically. There's quite a lot going on, and could you tell us a little bit about setting the sound design for this film and sort of coming up with the sonic idea that would accompany the visual?
Yeah, this for me it's very important to create a parallel texture of sound, which could be sound, and for the first time in this film become also music. But um, the work that we did with Daniel Bloomberg was made at the end of the shooting, basically after 3 years, only 2 weeks before we ended the film. So he saw the film after working in The Brutalist. I know him since many, many years. I knew that only Daniel could make that work. And I told him the only thing, I don't want to recognize the instrument in the film. I don't want a score. So for a musician to say, I don't want to recognize the things, but he immediately take this as a fantastic challenge. He's the most experimental artist and musician that I know, and I have so much admiration for his work. And he immediately understood what it needs at the film, because there was a lot of work on the sound design in the film, but I always wanted to create something more, some kind of slabs of time, which they were be suspended the time, to have this sense of suspended time, like Maria say, it's like being in a suspended time. And to do that, he started working on very few ideas, and um, and then the first things that came, okay, we have to do sound from the water. And we recorded in London with this incredible sax player. So the sax, all the sound that you hear is like from the sax. And then we did some experiment on the bathtub of his apartment in London. It was incredible the way the water transformed the sound. And then after we did the improvisation of the sax, of the tune, of the moment of the film, creating certain theme, we went to Naples again, where I shot the last shot in Baia, whereas the civilization that is submerged underwater, and we recorded there the whole sound, put in speakers underwater, and 5 microphone around in the rocks, in the sand, in the water, in the metal, and all this sound became transformed in something that becomes really that sounds that is coming out of the earth. So, and all this was done in 2 weeks, because we did the concept, the exhibit, the performance, and then the editing and the mix. So it was like an incredible. And 1 week later, there was a Venice Film Festival. So I told Daniel, there is no plan B here. It has to be right. The plan B is silence, and we cannot accept that. So it worked, and he did an incredible work on that. Mm.
Just concerning maybe we should see if the audience wants to hear it, wants to know
Of course.
anything. Yeah. So if you have a question, please raise a hand, and we will bring you a microphone. And we're going to start right there.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic. Torn between really desperately wanting to know some of the technical issues, the technical challenges. One, were you filming video? How did you, as a single person, deal with the sound? Did you really shoot in black and white or convert later? Blah, blah, blah. And on the other side, how early or late did the story of the concept of the recordings to the fire department, how early or late did that come to your mind, and how difficult was permission to get that, also as compared to like getting permission to be on that boat with the gearing? Sorry, so many questions.
All the permits of this film was incredible challenge for me. When I see all these names, I say, I never know any of these people. What are all these people in the film? Because I have a fantastic producer, Donatella Palermo, who she was able to get permit everywhere that I was wanted to shoot, because all the place I shot was really off limits. Basically, even the caldera where you have all that thing was like all impossible to go there and shoot on your own. So to raise all these to shoot in Pompei. Was Pompei, they used to have CNN, BBC, all these go every day to do like a story in Pompei. And they go there for 3 days. They give like 15,000, 20,000 a day to shoot, and they go back with footage. And I say, for me, it's impossible to have this crazy budget. It's I don't have that budget. Plus, I shoot only in certain condition of light. I always shoot with the clouds. For me, it's very important to film with the clouds and with the certain things. I'm a one-man crew, so I can wait for 1 month to have the right light. Plus, I don't like even to shoot. I have enormous anxiety when I film. So to have the blue sky and to know that I don't film that day is such a relief. So, so the idea of don't have to link myself to the clouds, I love it a lot. My work depends on the cloud. And at the beginning, the title was a bit a provocation, Below the Clouds, because I'm gonna shoot only with the clouds. And then when I find out the quote of Cocteau that the volcano creates all the clouds of the world, I thought was such an incredible image. The fact that those clouds that are created on this mysterious deity almost that is the volcano that destroy and regenerate is like Shiva figure for me, the Vesuvio, and the idea that the clouds of the Vesuvio, the smoke of the Vesuvio arrived to New York is such an incredible image. So that became the type. It's like Naples is the world in a way, the idea of Naples goes. So this was embracing somehow, and in the way the film, there is a feeling that is a universal feeling. Even the fear that there is because of the earthquake, it's a universal feeling. Right now, we live in a moment of unsteadiness, of fear, of uncomfortable. So that the film has that. The fact that every day it could be an explosion and all this could be cancelled, like it happened with Pompei. There's this fragility of our world that nature is there, and now there's not only nature. There's also the madness of human power that they create this instability and sense of fear around us. But so also this sense of fear is a universal feeling. At a certain point, there's someone say, between the war and the tremor, I don't know, our life has been, the war, the tremor, so it all become a same concept somehow. So there is a universal element of this fragility of our world, of our this Roman civilization has been cancelled completely in one day. The Pompei has been completely razed in few hours. Those statues that you see underwater that are immersed, and under there is this thing of the tremors of the volcano. So all these elements I wanted to be universal element of sharing. For me, it was very important that shooting in black and white was a choice immediately, and I shot in black and white, and I had to learn to look at things in black and white, because the film was shot in black and white, and for me, the idea of black and white was black and white forced you to see things in a different way, like it forced you to focus in a different way. But mostly, I wanted the present to become archival. The moment I was filming that scene, I wanted the film to belong to the past, and the fact that I chose to film to show the archival footage in this destroyed movie theater. The easy way to say is that would be, some people ask, is, do you want to say that cinema is dead? Or, well, maybe it is. I don't want to say, but if you read that, it's fine, which is probably true, because 80% of the in Italy, they are closing down theater everywhere, probably also here in the States. And so there's going to be a different way of watching film. But I always loved the fact that we are in a theater and be able to be smaller than what we see. I think it's fantastic, to have a screen and we are there smaller. This, for me, is the beauty of cinema. And so the black and white was a way of put the present into the past already. While I was filming, the present was becoming archival, like cinema is archival. For me, this old theater completely fall apart. There is still the memory of the screen that projects the image that once they were shared by people in those places. So it's always the film plays with this element of memory, present, past, and if un futuro possibile and a possible future or an hypothetical future. Mm. Yeah, because and it's another off screen, the war that arrives to Naples. Those kids, Abud is only 21 years old, and they risk their life in order to bring us food. Like the Japanese professor, he said that the Roman used to bring the grain and the food into the port of Pompei, and that was the most peaceful moment in these 50 years of peace, because there was prosperity and there was food. And we don't even think that, in that 200 grams of grain that you find in all supermarket in order to do the recipe, like the kids is listening at the radio, at the how you call that, the app, the telephone, the
like
anyhow, the recipe that is we never think what is in the back, and this is somehow they're the new slaves. Those guys, that for a few dollars, they're risking their life and digging this grain that for us is just a fact that we're gonna find in the supermarket, the grain to do, like the kids say, pasta, bread, and whatever. So in the film, there's always an under element of a denounce, of a political denounce, which I never want to shout it, but I want to create small moment of thinking, to the whoever is watching the movie, to the audience. I don't like to shout things, but I like to bring element of reflection and be able to elaborate those elements. Mm.
Thank you very much for a beautiful film. I was fascinated by the use of trains.
So,
Yeah, here I am.
yeah.
By the movement of trains, kind of that industrial feel, the discovery of the tunnels into the ancient tombs that is sort of like a modern day bridge to the ancient period, and almost a timeless element of the horses running on the beach and around the track. Did you think about those elements as you began the project, or did it come to you as you were pulling together the story?
No, it all came to me because when I started the project, I had first just a theoretical idea of how I wanted to do or what I wanted to film, and then for me it's always start with an encounter, with seeing things, and with spending time there. When I saw the horse for the first time on the beach, it immediately referred to me was like a Roman. Thing. So there's always this element, and then I start following those horses, and then I discover those horses they do the race in the Ipod, and that area is exactly where the Campi Flegrei are, so the La Caldera. So there's two volcanoes. There is in Naples, the Campi Flegrei and the Vesuvio, and they're both active, and they're both creating a daily sense of minaccia, how you say, of menace, yeah. So it's an incredible city that lives constantly with this idea of fear, but Napolitans have an incredible spirit that somehow they go always over that, and they get used to this. And in fact, the phone call for me, when you were asking about how I discovered that, for me, in all my film, at least the one I did in Italy, I always liked to include certain institution. In Sacrogrado was an ambulance. In Fire at Sea, it was the Navy going into this imaginary border. And then here I wanted to include the fire department. That was I want to see how do they move in this city and what happened with them. And the first time I visited the control room, where they received the phone call from all over Naples, I discovered an incredible sense of generosity and of giving, because if you think also all the people of the film, all the characters of the film, they have this sense of devotion, of giving to the others. When I was editing the film, I said, what do I have in common, these people? And that's what they have in common, to give it to the others. Civilization start when we start doing things for others. That's where our idea, for me, my idea of civilization is, to do something for the other. And if you think in the film, everybody that I met, and I become this later, to me, when I was editing the film, or at least in the final, I said, what do they have in common? Yes, they have in common this sense of devotion. It's a secular devotion. There is also a pagan devotion in the film, the one on the church, but that's another. For me, it's a moment of hyperbole in the film. It's like what's going on, but also that it exists, almost like a pagan ritual, which is there because of the 3,000 years that are there, and there is an incredible link with history, with the past, and with the sense of this pagan element of religion that is only under the volcano you can discover that. If you go to Naples, that has a different way of expressing itself. So and I was fascinated by the sense of generosity that they have, the fire department. And I start filming in that room immediately without knowing anything else. And then I met the three, the one that you see, Maria, Sergio, and Giuseppe. And I start following them when they were like working. They work like 12 hours every day, night or things. And so in 3 years, I probably spent like maybe 50 times there, or maybe 100. I don't know. When I didn't know where to go, I just go there, and I felt like home there. And I just had to put the camera and wait that there was a right phone call without moving the camera, without doing anything. We were cooking, we were eating there. Sometimes I was sleeping there, and it became part of the family somehow. I became part of that because it's like always a family. Always here also you see people cooking. They have a different. I think if our army in the world would be made by fire department, there will be a better world probably. Imagine the only army allowed is the fire department all over the world. That would be a great world.
Right on. All right, we can take one more right here.
Ernie,
Fir-
hi.
First of all, I just want to thank you for such a
We were at
poetic.
NYU together with Ernie.
Okay,
Ernie
we'll do
Fritz.
two more. Two more.
I want to thank you for such a beautiful and poetic film, and I love the fact that you did it in black and white. I thought that was very special, especially with the visual quality and the framing. I wondered about time in your film. Did you shoot? Is it more in the editing later that you put that together, or did you shoot only one time when you were shooting?
What do you mean shooting one time? When I
Well,
was...
did you only shoot something that was current time, or was the idea of the past something that you would do later? Or was it the future that you would shoot later? In other words, were you thinking about your 3 levels of time each
Okay,
time you
that's
went to shoot?
yeah, this yes, this of course, yeah, because for me the first that was the core of the film always. This fact of certification, the suspension of time, the present, the past, and the hypothetical future. This was always an element that was allowing me to frame and to take the right distance. Because if you don't have that in mind, it's very hard to put the camera, because the camera can go anywhere. But then there's only one position that can tell the story that you want to tell. And I think it's very important always to find the right distance with the camera, the right frame, the right height, the right. I remember Scorsese, when we did at NYU few classes with him, he say there's 1,000 position of the camera you could have, but only one is right. At least only one is right for the story you want to tell. And this, if you don't have that idea, it's very difficult to frame, because you cannot frame just accidentally. In that frame, it has to contain an idea, an expression of something. So that was something I always carry with me from the beginning of the film. And then you encounter the story that somehow are, even in subconscious way, are part of you, and then you meet by chance a story or a person, and then that person becomes the character of your film. And then you have to build a trust. You have to build a relationship. You have to know what is that you're feeling, the essence of that story. So with all of them, it's been long, being together, spending time. Sometimes I spend time with Titi, and then for 3 weeks I go another story, and then I go back to Titi. Titi is the teacher, and then I go with Maria under things. I spend like 2-3 days with her, then I leave, and then I go to the horses, and then back to to fire department. So all these 3 years they were back and forth between one story and another story. Sometimes people say, "Why you don't come anymore to film us?" Well, because there are other stories that they were not only us. I said, "No, not yet." So sometimes you disappear for 1 month. But I remember my teacher used always to say, "You have to know when to go and when to leave." When to leave is very important, because otherwise you get like there's a moment that you have to leave and then come back. So this is like in these 3 years. For instance, the prosecutor, he was the first person I met. I went to Pompei when we were asking the permit to be there. Also, Pompei, the permit, I was able to get a permit that I could go there anytime I wanted to film. And we only paid the minutes that we was in the final cut. So that was a very good arrangement instead of day by day. So I had the permit to really go there whenever I wanted. I chose to go there when it was raining, because I discovered that that was the only way to don't film people, because they had umbrella. So because now wherever you film, you have to have like a release form. It's impossible when you have like 50 people in front of you and you're filming a crowd of 50 people having each form of release. It's impossible. But when it was raining with the umbrella, you couldn't see the face. So I thought it was a perfect situation to film when there was a crowd in Pompeii. So I decided to go there only with a lot of rain, which is beautiful to see Pompeii under the rain. This is like a complete transformation of the place. So you make these kind of choices sometimes because of practical reasons. Sometimes becomes then it looks like an artistic choice, but it's not always an artistic choice.
All right, this is the last one.
So, hello, Gianfranco.
How you doing, honey?
This is the first film that you've ever used archival footage in the cinema.
No, I also with Notturno there is in the
Oh,
theater.
okay.
Yeah.
And first film you've used music,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, could you briefly talk about that? And also, since this is a love story to Naples, this compares very much to Sacro Gra as a love story to Rome.
Yeah, it's
Do you
about the
see them
geographical.
as two films that accompany each other?
In a way, they are very geographical film. Both of them, they have a territory, they have a place, and within this territory, you create an imaginary world. Because then at the end, even the Gra is a transformation of a place. For me, it's important to transform a place in something else. Naples. To transform Naples is a big world, but Naples helps you on this sense of certificate that has in order to create a vision that is different than the impact you have on a daily life there. So yeah, they're both very geographical filming. Within this geography, you find element of narration, of encounter of people. But Sacro Gra was a circular film in a way, and this is more like a film that goes like in a verticality, I think, more than that, and it's less evident the geography of the place. So in a way, also in that, I like to transform that because. To create a sense of displacement, like that you don't know where you are anymore. You don't know if you're filming the volcano, if you're filming the Campi Flegrei, or if you're filming the sky, the thing, you're up, you're down. So in this film, I had a lot of opportunity to play with all these elements. Especially on the editing also. So yeah, but there is a similarity. Many people say that this film has a certain element of roots with Sacro Gra. Definitely on the encounter of the people it has, on the way I filmed that. And the other question, the archival footage. The archival, it was. I didn't want to use the archival, like in Sacro Gra. I used the archival was part of the theater performance, so they were showing archival, and that was happening there when I was shooting. So it was not my choice, the archival, but was like filming this play. And here, from the beginning, I wanted to use the archival, but I didn't know how. I wanted somehow to put also the film of Rossellini, Viaggio in Italia, for me is one of the most magnificent film that was shot, and I love so much that movie, and I wanted to use some element of that film, but I really didn't have an idea. Plus, having inherited of Pietro Marcello, he's the master of archival footage. I didn't want to use the archival the way my friend Pietro use it, which is like a counterpoint of reality. So you go from one place to another place back to reality, creating this element of contrappunto, of counterpoint. And then for a while I didn't know how to use it. Still encountered this theater, and then I said, okay, this is a place where the archival, so using the cinema like a form of archaeology and memory, and having the screen being part of the memory of the past. So I decided to tell that story within a theater of the archival. So it became like a space, also an archaeological site, somehow.
Why don't we leave it there for now? But Gianfranco, thank you so much for this beautiful film.
Well, thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you so much.